Boom, what is up everybody? Welcome to Mount Mograph's Basecamp, I guess is what we're gonna call it. So this is actually gonna be a weird video, I promise. I shouldn't promise you it's gonna be a weird video, but I'm actually just doing a voiceover over this video. I recorded, and this is going to be downloading and using a new plugin that's free and I think is pretty sweet. And yeah, Basecamp is just gonna be kind of like not full projects, but I guess my thought process is on doing certain things and just kind of like doing experimental stuff. So some of it will be more interesting, and in this one we get to use the flock modifier. So yeah, just going through the install process, super easy, just like normal, and the link to that is in the description below. The whole thing basically works like a poor man's X particle system. I guess that's my review on it post using it, and it's a totally free thing. It's not like a sponsored video or anything like that, but I just thought it was a lot of fun. I had a ton of fun using it, and that's why I'm recording it after the fact, that I wish I had like like done a voiceover over it when I was first playing with it. But yeah, so the series, I guess, it should be kind of cool. I'm gonna kind of go through like how I first started using it, and then at the end there's something that I'm gonna call a brain blast, which is like 40 minutes of me just like playing around with it. I condensed down to like a minute. So you see like a lot of cool examples, and it's just to like give you ideas, but this isn't like a full project. So yeah, you add the flock deformer just to the scene. It's pretty easy, and at first I was like putting it inside of a null just to like see if it was going to be easier to use, but it turns out it doesn't matter where you put it, it's always going to affect the emitters in your scene, which is actually really nice. When you first put it in there, you're going to see the effect on your emitter, and it's kind of interesting because it immediately starts to look really cool, and I got excited because I was like, oh man, like this seems like a pretty awesome system. Just for like, as soon as you put it on there, it changed like a kind of crappy basic emitter into something that looked even like reasonably cool. So then I like duplicated an object just to see if it worked with like how emitters normally work, where you can use different objects or properties inside of your emitter at different sizes just to get like a different looking particles instead of just like one size. Yeah, I did that. It's kind of just how like the cloner object works as well. Then I added the flock target to the scene, and it didn't do anything at first, so then I realized it probably has a spot inside of the flock deformer to like, where most things have it, and it turned out it did have it, a target, so I put the target object in there. And what was cool, as soon as I turned that weight up to 100, I could see how it would affect the particle system. Really quick. I didn't have to mess with like an attractor and thinking particles or X particles, which is awesome, but can definitely not be as user friendly as like this whole flock system is so basic and simple, but it was a ton of fun to play with, and it actually is a pretty amazing system. You'll see at the end of this video what you can kind of make with it if you push it a little bit. Yeah, when you play around with it, I really didn't know what I was changing, so I can't like give a good video on how to use it perfectly. But just playing around with the different properties, you can start to see the system becomes like really powerful and cool. Just like changing little basic things, you can see how it affects the whole flock or particle system. Anyway, let's see what happens. So yeah, it's kind of funny to be talking over a video, but if you guys like it, let me know, and I'm going to keep doing these Basecamp videos, which could be kind of fun. Something different, which is always nice. So playing around with the distance, it kind of started to create a spread between the particles. And that was kind of like the turning point in my head where I was like, oh man, this is going to be a lot of fun to play with. So I kept kind of playing around. I wanted to check that it worked with the emitter product or properties as well. So just changing like the speed and end scale of them to see if like the emitter particles would still disappear inside of a flock system. And of course it did, just to test things. Yeah, so here I started to play around with maybe like an exhaust effect or I don't know, just kind of interesting little cloud burst thing. And what's cool is like this is a very basic example for this first bit, just using spheres inside of the emitter, but you could use like any other object you want or cubes if you wanted to get crazy. But yeah, so dragging it around, you can start to see how flexible this is and how helpful it could be inside of a system where you could just animate the target and get this really nice kind of floating effect. So you could put that inside of a metaball if you were really crazy and had a nice computer, because the metaball is pretty sketchy, but that could be cool. And yeah, just there's like a ton you can do with it. So the first thing I did was change down the lifetime, I think here, so it didn't last as long, so it'd be like almost dissipating particles. And then I was thinking you could do like fire effects and smoke and stuff, and I was like, oh man, I am really loving this. what's cool is if you maybe like just multiply this system and made like hundreds of these particles, it could get so interesting and cool. I mean, just in this like 3 minutes I was playing with it, I started to build something that could look awesome in a 3D space or even as a 2D render with like a luminance material. So yeah, just kept playing around with it for a little bit. Checked it out in 3D space for a little bit as well. Yeah, this is when I was like, ooh, it works in 3D, awesome. And the whole effect actually looked pretty cool. You know, I can see it for a lot of different things, different like pumped up properties. Yeah, that flock target worked great. It was really nice to be able to change like the different amounts of weight, or like you can see what's happening here. It's kind of silly to be doing a voiceover, but the real powerful one turned out to be the speed limits, because it was like how fast the particles would come towards the target. And once again, you could like keyframe that for a ton of different effects. But this is when like the system started to become super fun to play with. And I was like, I kind of lost track of time and whatnot. Yeah, so once again, this is using a very low particle emitter count. I think it was only like, so I bumped it up here, of course. It seemed like the right time to get stupid. As you can see, the system actually looks pretty sweet. And in terms of just basic particle systems to set up, this is among the very easiest. Zooming out, you could maybe get some cool water splash effects if you keyframed certain things, hitting it and dissipating out, or maybe like keyframing the turbulent effects. The system worked great. It really didn't like perform badly on my system at all. It was like I could bump it up to 300 and my system didn't get laggy at all, which was perfect. Definitely a nice feature, especially for particles, which can normally get pretty heavy. The next thing I think I played around with was, I guess, like what other practical animations you could do, because it's not always nice to keyframe your target, even though it's fun to do. That's not really the best way to animate. I think I started playing around with just like what you could do with splashes, or maybe automating splashes, which is always nice to be able to like have a system like this that you could just like paste into other objects. Then I was thinking the Vibrate tag, and this was kind of, like the end of the basic example, and I think we'll see some cool stuff in just a second, or what I think is cool. But yeah, so I added like really stupid Vibrate values, and it was just popping around and looked really bad. Maybe like more moderate values. It was kind of nice just to have a particle system that, I don't know, some really crappy fire, or really crappy smoke, really crappy water, or really crappy particles. You can have your choice of any of those four. But yeah, as you can see, like the emitter system, once again, works with different properties or objects. So you can just drop a different one, like a pyramid inside. And if you hop back into your perspective view, which I think I do, right here, you can see how it works immediately inside of your system, which is awesome. So anyway, here is the cool part of the video called a brain blast. So just a lot of me playing around, condensed down, just so you can maybe get something cool out of it. So here we go.
We're just getting started. Count it off like this. 1, 2, 3. IV. Intelligent rhymes with original styles. And we got Mr. James, Whale, and Man-Child. It's you. Wanna know. The real deal. Here it go. Under the cross. Being the amount of the cross. Being me don't amount to the loss. You see me know my fight on the flaws. To free me off from out on the toss. Into the deep sea breathing. Out the exhaust. Inhaling the frost, the cold summer's the cost. A ceiling I'm lost with no compass, a cause and effect. But your pause to reflect for a moment. Taught to respect the atonement, I own it. And walk these steps as a grown man. When talk is a weapon that holds men. I fought with this lesson with no hands. Trying to know my savior, it's a risk. When your wrists are dying a whole major, it's a mind over nations of millions. The face of our children, the chase for the safety and buildings that make it so yielding is never an option. Of willing to weather whatever it costs. Fight for a better way. Ain't no time for hesitation. Fight for a better way. Keep you shook crew running. And a Man-Child got you touching a ride. Put it on the line like rhymes that we write with a pad and pen before we